Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Izzaty Farhana Binti Aminudin with a metric number of 2412858, and today I will be presenting about the Palestinian situation and the perspective of some other significant figures on it. One of the articles that I have read from Professor Mahmud Hassan's writing, which is A Terrible Beauty That Is Born in Gaza, that emphasizes the violence and cruelty of the colonizer. The article uses Yeats' phrase, "A terrible beauty is born," the paradox, which is the terrible to violence and sufferings alongside the beauty of resistance and resilience. It discusses about the parallel and similarities between Easter risings of 1966 in the Ireland and the current situation in the Palestine, particularly in Gaza and the West Bank. The courage and love for their land are driving forces behind the Palestinian resistance against Israeli occupation. From what I've read, the Palestinian situation right now share the same parallels as Victorian Woodhouse, as it highlights the indifferences of world leaders to the suffering of Palestinians. They endured a dreadful life alongside with a tragic violence, with a fragile of ceasefire in the place after a year of genocide. Despite the cruelty of Israeli soldiers in Gaza, their violence against Palestinians in the West Bank wouldn't go unnoticed. Victorian Woodhouse aims to deter the poor by providing harsh conditions and asking for slavery. From this situation, we can see that it can be visualized as that due to being subjected to bombings, ethnic cleansings, and genocide. The interesting research that I have found, which is Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of US, showed his concern upon Palestinian situation right now and openly criticized the Israeli for its acting against Palestinians, unlike the other US presidents. One of his books, Palestinian Peace Not Apartheid, sparks controversy by labeling Israel as an apartheid state. Even some scholars have praised him for his advices, concerns, and defense towards the Middle East peace or the overall human rights. In addition, the Israeli atrocities has led our beloved Professor Kamal Hassan's poem Complaining to Iqbal, which highlights the suffering of Palestinians and linking it to the colonial and post-colonial narrative. It highlights the historical context of Israel's oppression, tracing its roots to British brutalities and the post-9/11 global war in terror. The poem, which is Complaining to Iqbal, describes the oppressive power as the slave masters in a world of scrutinized discourses, addressing Muhammad Iqbal about the predicament of the global Muslim population. Hassan's poem references the gun of Israel and cries of the Yasir, Sabra, Shatila, and Jenin as the highlights of the brutalities and injustice suffered by Palestinians. From this situation, we can see that this is a proof that the Israelis' exploitation on 9/11 global war discourses to intensify the attacks of Palestinians in Gaza. Other than that, we have found that the Nobel laureate Doris Lessing's view on political issues and their relevance to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. It interprets Lessing's post-Nobel message as a source of hope for anti-Zionist protesters, suggesting that the oppression structures, including Israeli policies, will disappear. Lessing also expressed concerns about glamorization of war and the normalization of cruelty, which she saw as the partially relevant to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. By reading Lessing's message, it offers the hope for young anti-racist and anti-imperialist campaigners, suggesting that the oppressive register will eventually disappear. The plight of Palestinians is a result of Israeli settlers' colonialism manifested through various crimes designed to force them off their lands. Postcolonialism is one of the most relevant academic disciplines to the discourse of Israeli and Palestine and the promotion of human rights in the region. One of the most important figures in this discourse, which is Edward Said, in developing post-colonial studies, traces the movement origin of Palestinian resistance, obligatory practitioners to address Palestinian liberation. He is also credited for deconstructing colonial discourse and advancing post-colonialism with his book Orientalism. Additionally, Said's experience as Palestinian influenced his intellectual work, particularly his study and mediums interpretation. Said's book Orientalism was conceived out of his experience as a Palestinian living in the United States after the 1967 war and noted that Israel has historically killed Palestinian civilians at a disproportionate rate. Apart from Edward Said, Salman Rushdie also has commented on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and Hamas have been criticized for diverting attention from Israeli actions. Rushdie emphasizes on the religious characters of Hamas, overlook the rabbinical extremism of Jewish settlers in Israel. One of the articles from Professor Mahmoud Hassan points out a statement by Benjamin Netanyahu suggesting that Israel can easily influence the United States. It is because the United States government unconditional support for Israel policies against Palestinians, including its veto power of the United Nations Security Council to protect Israel from criticism. This article also cites the case of Rachel Carey, an American activist killed by an Israeli bulldozer while protesting the demolition of Palestinian homes without no significance from the United States government. He also mentions about Aaron Bushell, a United States Air Force serviceman who self-immolated in protest of Israel's action in Palestine, but his action received little to no coverage. From this whole situation, we can see that the US is eroding its own principles and values to support Israeli policies, harming its reputation and embarrassing its citizens. Not only that, we also will be exploring the views of Charles Dickens' Roald Dahl in examining the portrayals and views on Jewish people. Firstly, literary anti-Semitism means it's as old as anti-Semitism itself. For Dickens, he is always accused of anti-Semitism due to his portrayal of Fagin in Oliver Twist. Meanwhile, Roald Dahl's anti-Semitism is evident, expressing animosity towards Jews and attributing reasons to Hitler's actions. For Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist, Fagin represents an unsympathetic character, and his religious identity is revealed by identifying him as a Jew. As a result of this situation, some critics defend Dickens, telling that he used the character to encourage the Christian readers to distance themselves from social vices. In contrast, Dahl stated that his anti-Semitism had started in 1982 due to Israeli action in Lebanon. This action may incite the anti-Jewish feelings, especially among those who are prone to prejudice. Now we will be examining the situation of Palestinian children and their experience towards this whole situation. Palestinian children has experienced mass murder for decades, with the recent surge of casualties since October in 2023 due to the Israeli attacks. Those surviving Palestinian children struggle to understand the constant attacks and the disparity between their life and those children in the other parts of the world. They experience the road marked by checkpoints, restricted movement, surveillance, and also the constant threats and imprisonment of their life. Hence, the multi-generational Palestinian crisis is a stain on a global consensus, and restoring the humanity and dignity of Palestinians is crucial. Furthermore, let's take a look on feminist views on this Israeli-Palestinian situation. One of the feminists that give the significant relevance to the Israelis and Palestinian situation, which is Rokeya. Her primary concern was the progress of the entire community, with women's advancements as a precondition. Rokeya believed that women should be complementary partners to men, not burdens. She tied women's emancipation to the liberation of society from colonialism and patriarchal society. Last but not least, her feminist ideas are closer to Palestinian women's experience than to those of contemporary Western women. In essence, what has happened between Israel and Palestine is an intensification of a century-old of struggle, marked by cycles of violence, failed peace attempts, and ongoing suffering, especially among civilians. The world watches, hoping for a resolution that brings justice, security, and dignity to both people. A land divided by history and blood, where hope flickers beneath the rubble, the Israel-Palestine conflict stands as haunting testament to what happens when justice is buried beneath the generation of fear, power, and loss.